This generation is doomed. We've all heard it before. Climate change, the AI apocalypse, social media, nuclear war, World War III, this generation. It can be hard to feel a sense of what you're doing actually matters, or a sense of accomplishment in the slightest, when it feels as if the world has stacked its cards against you from the very beginning. Now, it's not just about worrying about building a good future so you can live your dream life to its fullest capacities, as all humans should be doing, but worrying whether or not there is a future to exist at all for that. We look at the climate reports, and we see the growing frequency and degree of natural disasters that happen as a result of climate change. We see the flatlining graph of wages rising as we look at the exponential towering and predicted outcome of inflation. We turn on the radio and our stomachs drop and pivot as we listen to the growing number of countries that are at worst with each other, adding to their nuclear arsenals, the geopolitical ropes that hold our world together tightening to form a noose that feels like we can't breathe, because what if that is the future that we have built for ourselves? One where humans will inevitably cease to exist because we've destroyed ourselves in a sense of our own creation. For me, and I'm assuming many others in this room, this fear was real. As a person who's a little bit more anxious than I probably should be, and with a deep appreciation for physics, I've always found comfort in this reliance of science in its ability to predict, to accurately give us an image of what perhaps the future might look like, to the highest degree of accuracy possible. Now, the future, arguably one of the hardest things to accurately predict, and one of the even more harder things to have confidence in, can also be applied to the same prospect. So I applied these principles, and I took a look. And what I found, although in hindsight pretty much I thought would be obvious, surprised me, and it gave me that little bit of comfort I needed to push myself into having that renewal of faith for humanity, for the future that I have to look to live in, along with many of you. And it made me feel better. And not just because I was holding on to a whim, holding on to a little bit of hope, but holding on to something that patterns have repeated in the past shown me might actually be plausible to happen. So let us take a look back at the patterns of humanity, of what we have seen happen, what we can predict might happen, and to realize that as doomed as we may look, we may actually not be so doomed after all. The principle that I have seen, after looking through quite a bit of research, seeing the patterns of humanity, looking at even the biological principles of how life functions, as species' ultimate goal is survival. I noticed one primary thing, that pushed humanity itself to becoming the apex predators, that pushed us to our innovation, that pushed us to the place in the world we hold today, and will ultimately be the key to save us. Adaptation. Adaptation, or adaptation if you will, Mr. Lee, is the process of adapting or changing the way that we do things to fit our ever-changing surroundings. Now, what does this mean? It means that the principles that the past was governed on, the way the world worked in the past, is not the same way it works now. We all know this, it's different. There are different rules governing it, there are different threats. So we cannot continue to apply those same principles, but we must instead change them. Now, by adaptation for humans, I don't necessarily mean growing a second head to spread out the amount of headache you have every time you think about how difficult the future may be, but our innovations, our invention, our drive, and our creativity. Ultimately, what has pushed us to here, and ultimately, what will save us. For animals to make a successful adaptation to continue the pursuit of their species in the world takes millennia. It can take thousands of years for a species to accurately make a change that will allow it to survive, because it is left to the principles of general mutation. For humans, however, with our innovation, this can take decades. We've seen it happen in months. We have governed ourselves and our principles to be able to reach such a height of innovation, of finding new solutions, that it has pushed us to where we are today and will push us to where we will be tomorrow. Thinking about this, I also noticed a different correlation that I thought was not only interesting, but essential to understanding where we will be in the future and how we can get to the place we need to be. The correlation between the threats that humanity faces and our innovation is direct. Our number of threats our degree of threats rises exponentially with our exponential rise of our innovation. There is a direct correlation between the two. Yes, meaning that as we grow into older societies, as the years pass and humans evolve and we change and our societies adapt and grow, our threats will continue to get worse. The future will seem to get harder. We will begin to wonder whether or not we can pass it. But a key aspect many people seem to forget is that our arsenal of tools, our knowledge, our innovation, our invention, and our creativity, ultimately our power as a society as a whole, rises with that growth of threat. Another essential component to this that I saw was that another essential component of human life, of human creativity, and the mere purpose we have to live, knowledge, what we have that has brought us here today, is another essential part of what makes this society so important and what will be the key to surpassing our threats. Think about this. When humans first harnessed electricity, we had it running through the walls of our houses with water, we were terrified. We were terrified that we would cause explosions with electrocution, families would die. When we first had microwaves in houses, all the important tools we use now, we thought the waves would go into the minds of our children and leave them brain dead and fried and unable to do anything. But we know better now. We studied more science, we did more experiments, we invented more things, and we now truly understand the power that these things hold are not danger, but mere tools to use. Let me give you an example of this. Y2K, the global sensation that sent people reeling. Planes would fall from the sky, computer systems would crash, the world would be thrust into global havoc because computational systems would not be able to comprehend the change from 1999 to the 2000s. But we did not sit and we did not wait for the end to happen. We innovated, we set backups. Scientists got together all over the world and made precautions specifically meant to address this. And lo and behold, here we are. Funnily enough, looking here at the future, back to the past, we realized we didn't have anything to be afraid of in the first place because computer systems would have been able to uphold it no matter what. We had a threat and we went past it. And now we know more about what we have created that allows us to see that it wasn't so scary after all. Imagine 50 years in the future thinking, oh, remember when we thought that AI would take over the world, that the world would be burning with nuclear explosions. And now we know that that won't happen because of this knowledge that we have in the future. Now, I'm not discounting the threat of AI or nuclear war, but simply saying that the future holds more knowledge to bring, more understanding of the things we have created, and that ultimately will give us the power to control it. This brings me to one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite people, Stephen Hawking, who in one of my favorite books said, humanity invented, and messed up repeatedly, and then we invented the fire extinguisher. With advanced technologies like very advanced AI, biomedical tampering, and nuclear weapons, the same principle applies. Our future is a race between the innovations we have and the knowledge we have to control it. Let us have wisdom win. What Hawking means by this is he means to say exactly what patterns have shown us in the past all throughout history. That humans, when encountered a threat, we understand it. We understand the principles of how it operates. And with that, we can invent and make new ways to deal with those threats. The fire, we understand the ways that it works, how it burns, how it spreads. And then with that, we take the fire extinguisher. Something that is now so widely used, fire isn't really even much of a main concern now because we have other looming threats that we will eventually also learn more about them, also learn how to mitigate them, also learn how to move forward. There is another prime example of this that I thought was very powerful and that I thought perfectly showcased the innovation that humans have brought with a common threat that humanity has faced, will face, and has recently faced, which is pandemics or the plague. The Black Plague killed about 30 to 40% of the world's population in 5 years. Havoc was wreaked upon cities. People didn't understand what was going on because they didn't have the knowledge back then to understand how different things worked, how microorganisms so small you couldn't even see them with your naked eye could wipe out entire populations Nowadays, when faced with our more recent COVID-19 pandemic, if we take the around, in 5 years, 7 million deaths we experienced so far, dividing it by the world population of around 8 billion, we get a 0.001% population decrease. While accounting for the population increase that happened since the Black Plague, that is still incredible to see that we have mitigated the threat that was so prominent to human civilization because we understood and we learned. And this is a process that I speak to you today as things that will ultimately help us gain control over humanity's creations, gain control over our future. Now, ultimately, nuclear warfare and AI may be a little bit more complicated to handle as opposed to those things. Although when you think about it, not really. When you think that the people were serfs and peasants who didn't even know how to read, that they didn't understand about microorganisms, and that now we, with our vast libraries of knowledge, are exposed to these far greater threats, I see the comparison as the same, or very similar. So no, this is not the end. At least not for now. It is time we stop asking, are we doomed, and start asking, what can we do? Do I think that this is the end of the world? No, I don't. Because humanity, as it has done in the past, and will continue to do in the future, will use their innovation, their power, and their creativity, the very thing that makes us humans, to control what we have faced, what we will face, made by humans or not made by humans, to bring us to a better place in the future. So adaptation, the process of changing what you do to face the changes you make, is essential, not just in the lives of humanity harnessing the future, but in the lives of each of you as well. When encountered with difficult situations that you haven't encountered before, remember to take different approaches, to use your innovation, your trial and error, and to figure out the best way possible to get you where you need to be. Because while things may seem scary now, we may not know enough about it, we may not properly understand the different ways to mitigate it, but we will, because we have done and we will do. So the next time you're feeling crushed by the impending threat of doom, think about how far humanity has come. Think about the fact that the previous apex predator dinosaurs lived on Earth for approximately 200 million years, where we've been on here for maybe 200,000. The end is not near, not for humans, not for a little while, because of the way that we have raised ourselves, the way that we have brought our civilization to what it is today, and the way that we will continue to bring that into the future, providing us with as much as we'd like, a sense of security in what we can do and can achieve. Thank you.